Well, it's surprising how all of these, I think since Glenn's lesson on last Wednesday night, and then Frank's lesson on Sunday morning, my sermon, Dan's devotion class tonight, and my devotional all have a lot of things in common. If you'll turn to John chapter 11, you'll probably recognize this chapter as the one where it talks about Lazarus dying and Jesus coming and raising him from the dead. And if you look in verse 40, then Jesus said, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" Now what that is essentially saying, that if you believe, if you trust, if you have faith in me, you'll see what my plan is. If we go back at the beginning of the chapter, we see that Mary and Martha, they're concerned, their brother's sick, Lazarus sick, and they don't think he's going to make it. So they send word to Jesus. So the sisters sent word to Jesus, "Lord, the one you love is sick." When he heard this, Jesus said, "This sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it." Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. Yet when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed there where he was for 2 more days. 2 more days. Now if we look on over there, it says before he went into the tomb, he'd been dead for 4 days. Okay, it took a messenger 1 day to get there to Jesus. Jesus stayed 2 days, and then it took a day for him to go back to see Lazarus. So Lazarus was basically on his deathbed when they sent message. He died that day. Now, in verse 21, Jesus comes and he meets Martha. In verse 21, "Lord," Martha said to Jesus, "if you had been here, my brother would not have died." If you'd have been here, my brother wouldn't have died. Why did you wait? He's gone. If we look in verse 32, when Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Both of them. They don't understand what's the reasoning behind this. You could have been here sooner. If you'd have just been here, he wouldn't have died. Look at all the suffering that's went on, the distress. If you'd have just been here. But as he stated, if you'll trust me, if you'll believe in me, you're going to see the glory of Jesus. You're going to see the glory of God. And what happened? If we read on over there, he goes to the tomb, he opens it up, and he's been dead 4 days. It's going to stink. There's no way he's going to come back out of there. But what happened? So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me, and I knew that you would always hear me. But I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that we may believe that you sent me." When he had said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. Jesus said to him, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go." He raised him from the dead. That's when they seen the glory. Now, some other examples. Abraham and Isaac. Abraham was promised a son that would be the one that would that would carry on throughout the nation. He was promised a son, and he had that promised son. And yet one day, God said, Abraham, take that boy up on the mountain, and I want you to sacrifice him. Now I'm sure he's saying in his heart, why, Lord? You gave him to me? Why? Why would you want me to do this? He didn't see the glory yet, but he trusted, he believed. And he was given back his son. And that would carry on throughout the nations. Moses was the same thing. Why, Lord, are you putting me in this position? And yet, he led the people out of Egypt. Same thing with Joseph. I mean, we look at all of these examples that we have. Why do we have things happen in our life? Why do we have sickness? Why do we have death? Why do we have problems within our families? Why do our kids not turn out exactly the way we want them to? Why aren't our plans going like we want them to? Just like my example on Sunday. Man, I would just love it if that was just a steady rise and everything works perfectly. But man, it doesn't. And we have so many things that go on in our life that I will talk for myself. I question, why is this, Lord? Why is this happening? And it tells us, if you'll just trust in me, if you'll just believe in me, you're going to see the glory. But isn't that so hard to do when you're right in the middle of it? I don't think Jill had any idea how much glory she was going to see when she found out that her daughter was handicapped. I'm having a struggle with seeing where the glory is in my dad being paralyzed from the waist down. I'm trying to figure that. I know there's got to be some, because God's will is going to be done. And there will be glory found in it if we just trust Him and believe Him. But there's so many times that we are in that, I guess, that state where we wonder, what is it, God? What is it you want me to see? What is it you want me to learn from this? I look at my dad as being the one that's suffering the most right now. And what does he have to learn from it? But then I look at all the others that are involved. What do I have to learn from it? What do the people that are offering help, that are calling, that are praying for him, what are they learning from it? Because everything that happens in our life is going to not only affect yourself, but it's going to affect a lot of people around you. And what we can learn from that is going to help us see what the glory of God is. I'm sure that Mary and Martha thought it's a done deal. I don't know why you took so long. And Jesus said, I'm going to take that long so that it will show the glory of God. He could have rushed. He could have got there probably in his last breath. He could have got on a fast camel or whatever, He could have got there. And in his last breath, he could have gave him CPR and said, yeah, we got it. Well, we saved him in the nick of time. But he didn't. Because he knew there was greater things to come. And he waited. Sometimes we don't wait very well. And I'm sure that Mary and Martha were on the edge of their seat. They sent the messenger. He came back the next day. And they're thinking, Jesus is going to be right behind him. And they wait. And they wait another day. And the flies are starting to come. I mean, they know there's nothing that's good to come out of this. Because he's in the tomb. And then finally, they're excited. But they're also wondering, why, Lord? Why? Sometimes it's hard to get excited when tragedies happen and that. But we do question it, don't we? Why did this happen? But yet, if we do keep our eyes on Christ, if we have that belief and that trust, the song we're going to sing, Trust and Obey. If we do those things, we will see His glory. If we obey Him, it tells us, if we obey Him and His commands, we're going to see Him again. If we trust Him, if we have faith in Him, if we believe in Him, we are going to see Him again. We're going to see Lazarus. But if we don't, if we're doubting, if we think, I don't know what His will is here, but it's getting too tough for me. I'm going to have to bow out of this thing. Be a whole lot easier to run. But that ain't going to get you anywhere. You're not going to see the glory of God then. But as Dan said, the trials, sometimes they can get you down. Sometimes you look at them and think, it says I'm supposed to be joyful. But it's tough when we're in those, and we go through them every day. I mean, some are more major than others, but think about your day. How many did you go through? We go through them constantly. They may be just little ones, and we can handle them pretty well. But it's the big ones that really stick in our mind and think, Lord, why is this happening? So as we think about the trials that we go through each day, think about what Mary and Martha were going through. Waiting on Jesus. Waiting. And yet He told them. 11 verse 40. Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? Did I not tell you? That's Jesus talking. Those words are in red. He's talking to us with the same response. Did I not tell you? If you believe, if you trust in me, you will see the glory of God. If there's anyone here tonight that needs to make a decision to follow Christ in scriptural baptism or has a prayer need of any kind, do so as we stand and sing our closing song.